Sun God versus Catman. This is the rematch that some of you may or may not have been waiting for. Rob Lucci to this very day remains one of Luffy's toughest enemies, who pushed him to the brink like no other, except for these two others. And he's back. This chapter was insane, so we're going to do that thing we do and talk about it. So we pick up immediately where we left off, with the Straw Hats being confronted by Vegapunk, or should I say a Vegapunk? Or not even, I guess we're just going to call her Lilith, because otherwise this Vegapunk business is going to get confusing. As suspected, Lilith is not the original Vegapunk. Well, she sort of is, I mean, kind of. From what I gather, Lilith is one aspect of Vegapunk, specifically the evil aspect, which is made very clear with the name. Lilith is like mythology's OG she-demon, the first wife of Adam who left him after a very awkward breakup. We'll get more into the punks in a bit, but easily my favorite part of this chapter opening was everything to do with Zoro. I love seeing him in situations like this because he immediately assumes leadership. He's like, Luffy's not here, someone needs to take care of these idiots. So you know what? I'm gonna cut some things. Potentially a lot of things. This right here is the key difference between number 2 and number 4. While Sanji is busy dealing with the sous chef in his pants, Zoro is keeping his cool, no doubt aided by his decision to take off his shirt in the snow. That's the power of a cold shower, I suppose. But in all seriousness, I think that Frankie and Sanji are only doing this because they feel perfectly safe at this moment. They know that everything is under control, and of course they do. Zoro's there. Usopp, Nami, and Brook, yeah, they're freaking out, but that's just sort of what they do. I also need to mention Robin because holy crap, I love that she was given this hyper-serious focus next to Zoro. It really portrays her as one of the heavy hitters of the crew, someone not to be underestimated, and also someone who can be considered even more of a demon than our Lilith here. Also, how amazing is Frankie? I don't think I've ever seen him happier than he is in this chapter. You know, he usually has this really cool super smile, like he's too cool for you and me. But in this case, he has gone 100% fanboy and is in cyborg heaven. As suspected, Frankie does idolize Vegapunk, and just as a reminder, for the whole of the Egghead Island arc, we will be playing Frankie Bingo. And if we can hit a full row, column, or diagonal, then Grand Line Review will be donating $1,000 dues to a charity voted on by you guys. And if we don't hit a bingo, then we fail and must donate twice as much. But that's what all the coal is all about as well. And we didn't hit anything in this chapter, but look, there is still plenty of time for some Frankie-based action. During this section, we are introduced to our second Vegapunk, the punk of logic named Shaka, which a brief and unrefined Googling tells me is likely based on Buddha, as Siddhartha was the leader of the Shaka clan pre-enlightenment, and Shaka is a name particularly used in the Japanese mythology of Buddha. I also see it spelled as Shakya, but essentially this Vegapunk is a clear thinker. Although there is also the Vegapunk of wisdom, so I'm keen to see what the difference is between logic and wisdom as characters. I imagine that logic is completely devoid of emotion, and I suspect the Vegapunk that can build these super weapons because, as you know, it's just putting simple puzzle pieces together, whereas wisdom is the part that goes, hey, maybe we shouldn't use the weapons we built. Towards the end of this section, Zoro also has an endlessly intriguing line, indicating that he, of all of the people, may have some business with Vegapunk. This would make sense with Frankie, yes. Robin, also yes. Nami, absolutely yes. They're controlling weather on this island. She would love to see that. But Zoro, what reason could he possibly have to take an interest in Vegapunk? In any case, we have officially embarked on a new arc because this chapter has the standard adventure title, which I love because those chapters are usually accompanied by this like introductory massive landscape shot, which in this case included the letters SSG hidden in the background there, but also an introduction to whatever crazy gimmicks the island involves. And this did not disappoint at all. Watching Luffy, Bonnie, and Chopper discover all of the wacky aspects of Egghead Island was great, and I especially enjoyed Jinbei's role because he feels a lot like a parent at a theme park watching his kids go wild. He is the father of the crew after all. And there's so much to cover here, but a solid highlight for me was watching Luffy almost activate Gear 5th due to a holographic parfait. Because I like that Gear 5th is being treated as exactly what it is. The extension of a child's imagination, which is going to come out in all sorts of moments, not just the dire life or death ones. This is the second time it's happened now, and I think that it's more than just a fun gag. I think that this is Oda showing us that Luffy has changed. He's become more free, he's awakened. And now the true power of this fruit is available for casual use. Here we are also introduced to our third Vegapunk, being the very deceptive Atlas, our punk of wrath, who was following the trend of Lilith in terms of very strongly evoking Uta from film Red. It's very hard to see that split hair effect in One Piece and think of anything else right now. As for the name, I think Atlas is an obvious one, you know, the Titan condemned to carry the heavens for all eternity and so on. Which is probably why our Atlas is so massive, although I like the subversion that instead of some big strong man thing, our Atlas is a little girl. Actually a girl who is both somehow little and big at the same time. But it's through Atlas that we get introduced to this idea of holograms, and a shockingly deep discussion regarding perceptions of reality and what is in fact real. Now when I first started reading this chapter, I was not anticipating to have my view of reality challenged by a very angry little big girl, but well, here we familiar. And I think it's very easy to skip over this section, but this is laying some very important foundation. You don't introduce the idea of holograms and specifically being able to touch the holograms without it being a future plot point. I think that principle is known as Chekhov's gloves that literally let you touch light for some reason. I don't know what that plot point will be because the options are frankly endless at this stage, but after seeing this, I would be very surprised if Luffy didn't get a hold of those gloves at some point and try to punch fight some holograms. But then again, what would be the point of that? Because they can't actually do anything to him. You know, they let you touch the holograms. They don't let the holograms do it the other way around. So maybe we're working towards a disaster style situation where the properties of the glove are somehow washed all over the island and we end up with a Jurassic Park scenario. I don't know. What I do know is that Oda was very sneaky in this chapter, and if he thought I wouldn't notice this, he was very wrong. Luffy and Bonnie stumble upon a delicious machine that produces 500 unique foods. And where have I seen this exact thing before? This is my actually moment, because that is clearly just a Cardassian replicator. I have watched far too much Deep Space Nine to not instantly recognize that. But for all of the non-Star Trek weirdos like me, the more interesting part is the dish it created. Because what spawned, seemingly at random, was Frankie's favorite food being burgers and fries, also accompanied by a Vega Cola. Now I need to see what Frankie looks like when he is powered by Vega Cola. As stupid as it is, this might be the Frankie upgrade that me. This may be the Frankie upgrade that me have been waiting for. And then there's Bonnie. She delivered us with two very important revelations this chapter. One confirming that she is indeed the daughter of Bartholomew Kuma, which perhaps sadly puts an end to many of the best Bonnie conspiracy theories. My personal favorite was that she was hundreds of years old and actually the ancestor of Big Mom. But now there is no Big Mom, just small daughter. This also cements her position in One Piece as our newest princess, thanks to Kuma having been a king. So we can probably expect to see Bonnie go in a similar direction to the Vivies, Rebecca's, Puddings, and Hioris of the world. Basically, she's gonna need help, and we're gonna do the helping. So I'm starting to wonder if the Sorbet Kingdom actually may be a big arc on the horizon, or if we're gonna take care of this Bonnie business rather quickly. It's interesting because princesses usually signify a long-term commitment to storytelling in this series, because there is no such thing as a quickie princess. They have connections to kingdoms, and those kingdoms have problems, and it all just takes a long time to sort out. The quickest way I could see this being resolved is that Vegapunk has like a hologram Kuma with a message for Bonnie, or perhaps Kuma's actual consciousness has been placed in another body, and then everyone lives happily ever after 15 to 20 chapters later. Probably not though. I would suspect that we're in with Bonnie for the long haul, especially because out of nowhere she drops that, oh, I ran into Sabo, you know, the guy who's your brother, which I both love and hate, because now we know that Bonnie has crazy information for us, but it's also like Oda making an announcement of an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to announce that I have a Sabo announcement at not now. Later. But that's potentially why Bonnie is so quick to, I don't know if trust is the right word. I guess it kind of is. But I don't know if that's why she's so quick to trust Luffy. Because she met Sabo and she knows that Luffy is a good boy. Alright, more big stuff now though, because there's a running theme in this chapter of running out of research funds, which is usually not something I would focus too much on. Like if it was just an offhand comment from Lilith, then who cares? But then it was touched upon again by Atlas. And it's an interesting problem to have because it has what could be a very convenient future solution. Firstly, the whole talk of research funds just reminds me of how Caesar Clown blew all of Big Mom's gigantification funds on women and booze. And in all of that time, I guess the only thing he could figure out how to make bigger was his clown car. But this all has the makings of a happy ending. The Vegapunks, plural, have come close to more or less solving every societal issue like climate and world hunger. All they lack is the money and the skilled craftsmen to mass produce. Now I know who happens to have quite a bit of the monies, and it's these bungle nuts, who are quite conveniently very much our ultimate enemy guys. And you know what they say. The enemy of my enemy is, in this case, a scientist who has split himself into 6 other people. Because the world government has continued to make the most questionable at best decisions possible with the arrival of CP0 to eliminate the Vegapunks. And this, I thought it couldn't get any worse, but this is the worst idea they have ever had. Even Lucci was like, oh, so our mission is to kill the most useful person possible? Cool. At this point, I'm seriously wondering if Im and the 5 Elder Stars are actually supporting Luffy from the shadows, because they keep pushing phenomenal allies right into his outstretched rubbery arms. After this chapter, there is no doubt in my mind that Vegapunk, or at least part of Vegapunk, is going to become an ally. Or maybe there will even be some Punk v Punk conflict, with half of them siding with the world government. You know, evil, logic, and wrath go to their side. Or actually, no, that can't happen, because again, the world government are trying to kill all of them. At this point, I feel like CP0 should be considering their own futures as well, because the world government is gradually kill murdering all of their greatest assets, which may mean that their well-dressed best heads could be next on the chopping block. For now though, I could not be more excited to see Lucci and Kaku again. Those two villains in particular are very special for me, because I caught up on One Piece while Enies Lobby was being published, that they were like my first current villains that I was following week to week. And the question does need to be asked. Are we going to see an Enies Lobby rematch? And if so, just how much is Lucci going to get absolutely obliterated? I get that they've become more powerful now, I accept that, but it is so hard to see a situation where any of those agents are able to stand against the current Luffy, Zoro, or even Sanji. Like, they're not rookies anymore. This is an emperor and his commanders. If all goes as is currently set up, I'm also looking forward to seeing Robin's reaction to the former CP9 agents, because this could be a great moment of growth for her. Considering that the last time we saw them, Robin was terrified of them. They were unbeatable enemies. No one stood a chance. So I'd love to see Robin confront them a bit more casually, knowing that she's perfectly safe. However, the appearance of CP0 almost certainly solidifies a role for Sword in this arc, right? They are the warring factions after all, Sword versus Shield. So it would be great to see that dynamic continue to play out, especially with characters like Helmeppo, who really has no business taking on Lucci, Kaku, or Stussy. I don't want to get too excited though, because we could always have a bit of a Zoe situation happen, by which I mean there was a period where it looked like Jack was going to return and there would be a big old fight battle, but then he was abruptly halted and the arc ended. The same thing could happen here, but there is one thing that gives me hope for a different future, and that would be the Kuma Seraph. I don't think it's a coincidence that CP0 are arriving with that particular one, and narratively it may be designed to confront Bonnie in some way. Also, the Kuma Seraph looks massive compared to Hancock and Mihawk, but I think that's because Kuma, unfortunately for his mother, is just a big dude. And I think that what we're seeing here is just how crazy huge Kuma was even as a child. But speaking of crazy, probably the craziest detail of the chapter was found on the very first page, because it looks like a certain someone is finally making his long-awaited return to One Piece, and we are going to dive deeply into that in the next video.